Aloha. Welcome to Fast, Healthy, and Ono Cooking Japanese Favorites. Tonight we will be learning okonomiyaki. My name is Cindy Ling, and I'm an AARP Hawaii volunteer. I'll be your host tonight on behalf of our sponsors, Kaunoa Senior Services on Maui, Uala Leaf Cafe at Windward Community College, and AARP Hawaii. Welcome. For those of you who are new or may be unfamiliar with AARP Hawaii, we are a membership organization for people 50 and older, but what we do for everyone. We hope that with this series, you can learn some techniques that you can use to build or maintain a healthy lifestyle. Let's do a quick bit of housekeeping. This is a picture of what you should be seeing at the bottom of your Zoom screen on a PC and Mac, and possibly the top of the screen on an iPad. Everybody is currently on mute. If you want to submit a question or comment, please click on the button that says Q&A and type it in your question. I will be monitoring the questions and making sure that they get asked. If you're watching on Facebook Live, you may type your questions in the comments. We won't be using the raise hand command because questions will be submitted in the Q&A. The chat command also isn't necessarily going to be needed unless you want to communicate a technical issue. Alice Swift, Dave DeWitt, and Jackie Boland are standing by to help. So please make sure you use the Q&A for your questions and comments. We recommend that you select speaker side-by-side view rather than gallery view for this presentation. Do this by clicking on the upper right part of your screen where it says View. Once you're in that view, you can change the size of the slides or of the speaker simply by clicking and dragging on the middle bar. Finally, we have added closed captioning to this presentation for those who have difficulty hearing. You can turn this off on your end by clicking on the CC Live Transcript button on the lower right side of your screen and clicking on Hide Subtitle. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Chef Daniel Swift, who will be leading us through this cooking series. Go ahead, Chef.
Thank you, Cindy. Can you hear me okay? All good? All right.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. I'll move my mouse here so it doesn't get dirty. Well, welcome everyone to our last class in our Japanese favorites series. Tonight we're doing okonomiyaki, and it's a wonderful dish. I made it today, actually this morning. I made a couple and gave one to Alice for lunch. And super simple, and there's a lot of area for creativity, which is kind of one of the things that we stress as we get going through the different classes. So I'll go over the ingredients and a couple tools that can be helpful in making it, including the little flat top skillet that I found in the kitchen. I'd never used it before, but it works just perfect for what we're doing here. So I typed up as usual. I have it on metal just because the skillet is hot and I want it to catch on fire. Traditionally, there's two styles to this. One is the Osaka style, which is considered to be the original style. And that's the one that we'll be making tonight, where we'll make the batter and then we'll mix the cabbage with the batter when we do it. So that's still leaves room for creativity in terms of a little bit of layering and things like that. But the Hiroshima style, which is the one we normally eat, Alice's grandmother and family lives in Hiroshima. So we go there, or we used to go there every summer. It's been a while, a couple of years now, but this is more of a layered version where the pancake or the batter is made first, and then items, the cabbage and whatnot, is layered, and then it's flipped and sometimes layered with multiple pancakes. A little bit more complex. Once you get the trick to flipping it, it works well. But due to time, this evening we're just going to make the Osaka style, or the mixed in batter style, which is delicious and really, really easy. As we look around at the items that we have for tools and equipment first, you want a good, what I would recommend, a good non-stick pan. If you have a little flat top like this is a Presto or something, and it's a non-stick, what we would call a griddle in the kitchen here, and it's used for pancakes and bacon and all kinds of things. It's basically electric. I've set it at about 350 degrees, and that varied at this morning. I was testing it out between about 300 and 350, depending on the thickness that we want to do. Obviously, the thicker you're making your okonomiyaki, then the lower the temperature so that you're not burning the outside. But we landed just short of 350 for what we're going to be doing tonight. Now, if you don't have one of these, don't have to go out and purchase one or anything. A simple non-stick skillet will work. You could probably do it in a regular skillet, but I think you're going to have a hard time getting it to not stick. So I would highly recommend you try to use a non-stick pan. The drawback to doing a skillet or a pan is that you can only make one at a time, which is really not a major issue. If you have a larger pan, you can make a larger one and then just cut it into multiple servings. So you could even experiment around and make small little ones. I was going to do that today, but I'll wait till after the show and make little individual ones, which would be kind of fun. So that's the primary tool for the cooking. We have a couple spatulas. Chef Steve here in the kitchen went and picked these up for me. And these are traditionally made and used for flipping okonomiyaki. So there's two different types. He got one. These are the metal ones, which are kind of a small size, but he also picked up some plastic ones that are like really, really small. But you don't have to go out and buy a special spatula. You can use whatever you have in the drawer. If you are using a non-stick pan or a non-stick griddle like this, be super careful. If you're using metal, you don't want to scratch it up. So I'll show you that later when we get going. So those are the primary tools for what we're making here. And then we'll look really quick at the ingredients. I sent out the recipe for making the batter. It's very simple. It's flour and water. We've got a little salt, a little bit of sugar or sugar substitute. You can scale back on those two ingredients in your batter if you want to. It's up to you. A little bit of baking powder to give it a slight leavening as it heats up, and eggs. That's basically what's going into the batter. And then for the body of the dish itself, we have some shaved cabbage, and there's a couple different ways to shave it. We did it really thin. This is Steve's preferred way. Chef Steve's done a lot of Japanese style cuisine, and this is his preference. But there's a lot of videos and a lot of chefs that will cut it into small squares. Totally up to you to decide what works best for what you're looking for. And then a little bit of red ginger I diced up, and some green onions. And then I did go and pick up a Chinese yam, and I grated it. Traditionally, it's in this dish. I didn't put it in the original recipe, but I saw one at the store today, so I grabbed it and grated it up so that we'll throw that in as well. Garnish-wise, you obviously can be creative, add what you want when you get to that point. But traditionally, you'll have green onions. So I'm going to put some inside, some on top. I've got the dried nori that we'll be putting on top as well. I got some sesame seeds and black and white mixed together. And then the okonomiyaki sauce, which you can buy already pre-made. It's probably the most convenient way to purchase it. Most of the supermarkets are going to have that for you. And then the sweetened Japanese style mayonnaise. Those are the traditional toppings. And then the last thing that we put on is some nice bonito flakes. I've got a couple of different kinds here. We're going to go with the larger ones. So if it's still on the griddle and hot, we should see the movement. That's kind of one of the traditional ways that it's served. So when you get it fresh and hot, all of those thin shaved bonito flakes are moving from the heat and the steam that's rising off of the dish. So there's also some smaller ones. If you're buying the small packets, you don't want to get something large. They do make small kind packages, which will give you the same flavor, but not necessarily the same movement that you would look for in the traditional dish. Steve went shopping also and picked up some of the tempura bits. Since we're trying to keep things healthy, we don't normally do the fried items, but I did read the label, and it's such a small amount if you were to garnish with this. These are just the tempura fried bits. It wouldn't be a huge addition of fats to the particular dish. So those are the things that we're working with. And as I said, we're making the batter from scratch. But Steve kindly picked me up a nice package of pre-made mix. So it has everything in it. You just add water and go. So depending on how much time you have and what's stocked in your pantry, you can get all of these items pretty much conveniently made in advance for you. All right, so we'll just go ahead and
Excuse me, Dan. We have had a request. Could you move your sign so that people can see the sauces?
Oh yeah, sure, of course.
Thank you.
I'll put that over here. So yeah, I have the yam here. This is the one I picked up. It's like $6 a pound. The Chinese yam, it's called, or naga imo, I believe is the term. The cabbage. Here's the dried green nori, the bonito, the two different types of bonito flakes, and then the fried wheat flour. All right. So what we're going to do is just make the batter. I'm going to add all of the dry ingredients really quick. The flour, the salt, a tiny bit of sugar, a little bit of baking powder. And this could be sifted, or you can also give it a stir. And then that will create a nice even mixture. And then we're adding the water. And I'm going to reserve a little bit. I'm always trying to check and make sure the ratio is right, depending on humidity. You know, you don't want to add too much water. You can always add a little bit more, but it's hard to take it out. So it looks like it's going to take most all of this. And then I'm looking for just sort of a thin, almost like a tempura style batter. That one's pretty close. Actually, it looks like it might use a teeny bit more. And then we just combine these ingredients together. And then that baking powder, which is double acting, it's going to start to leaven immediately once it comes into contact with that moisture. So you might see some bubbles coming up from it in the batter. All right. So I can set this aside. And I'm going to set this right here really quick. We have the egg also, but that's going to go in with the cabbage as we mix it. So if you're making a lot at one time, you could do one big batch, or you can keep the batter and the egg separate from the cabbage mixture and mix it sort of as you go. So what we'll do here is just take the cabbage. I got a slightly larger bowl. I'm going to use a little bit more than half of what I have here, maybe. And then I can set the rest aside and come back to that. Add some of the green onions and the red ginger that I diced up. And then the Chinese. And this is sort of gelatinous, almost like aloe or cactus or okra. It's got that sort of gelatinous, almost like snotty, I guess, for lack of a better term, texture to it. And then we're going to mix that together with some of really quick, and then add the batter. And if you got any questions, Cindy, feel free.
What was the hanabata thing that you put in the cabbage?
What was I'm sorry?
The hanabata thing, the snotty thing you put in the cabbage?
That's the Chinese yam.
Thank you.
The term for it is naga imo, N-A-G-A-I-M-O in Japanese. And I saw it at times in the little specialty section today when I was picking up some ginger. So I grabbed it and brought it in. And then I'm going to add a little bit more batter. We just want to get it nice and coated. And you could use spatula or tongs. I would use my hands ideally, honestly, if I was working this and not having to avoid a sink. If I had a sink nearby, I would be using my hands. Or you could always use a glove and take it off.
Okay, we have a question about tools. What special tool did you use? Did the other chef use to grate the cabbage?
I wasn't here when Steve did this. He kindly did that for me this morning. But it looks like he used the mandolin, or we've shown you a couple times the mandolin slicer, but you can do it by hand as well. It just depends. This is super fine. It's the way he likes it. And that could be done by hand if you're really, really good with a knife. I'll have time, hopefully at the end I can show you. But you can cut it any thickness or any shape you want. You just have to keep in mind how it's going to cook. The thicker and the bigger the pieces, the longer it takes to cook. Okay. I'm going to add that, and I'm going to throw in just a pinch more cabbage. Added a little extra batter. An egg and a half would have been perfect for that. All right. And then for the even though this is a non-stick skillet, we still want to make sure that we put a little bit of oil down. So the preferred oil for this is going to be our dark sesame oil, and that's just a toasted sesame. If you wanted to go with a healthier spray or either olive oil or avocado like we use all the time, or any sort of corn oil, that would work also. If it's non-stick, like I said, you could probably eliminate the oil, but the flavor, that little hint of flavor we get from the toasted sesame oil is really, really nice. So I can set this here aside. And then traditionally, as we build it, we would use bacon, but in this case, we're going to use turkey bacon. So it's usually thin sliced pork, but to create a little bit healthier dish, we went with the turkey bacon, which is already cooked, but it has that smoky flavor. It's really, really delicious. I ate it off the top on the way home for lunch today.
We have a question about why did you not add eggs to the flour mixture before adding the veggies?
You can do that. Earlier when I made the first one this morning, I did do that just because I was experimenting, and you certainly could. I think that the rationale behind that tradition is that you're making it sort of fresh to order. So if you have the big batter and you mix it all in, that would mean that you have to use that batter up immediately, but you can absolutely do that. That's a question I asked myself as well. And then I'm just putting down a little pile here. I didn't make it thick enough this morning for Alice when I took her home for lunch today, so I'll make it a little bit thicker. But as I said, you just have to be careful because you want it to cook all the way through.
Okay, we have some questions about the naga imo. Naga imo.
Yeah.
So these are all related. Is it raw or cooked? Did you grate it? And how much did you put in?
Yep, it is raw. It's getting cooked right now, and I did grate it. And for this batch, I grated down about half a cup. So when you grate it, it tends to expand in volume a little bit. So I ended up with about a half a cup for this particular batch right here. Great questions. So I don't want to make them too big because these spatulas are a little bit small. We tend to use in the kitchen the larger ones, so you can see it's quite a difference in size. They make these this traditional style a little bit larger as well, but I'm going to try to flip it with that. But you have to keep in mind that you're going to be coming under it and flipping it, and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it'll work out, but we'll do our best. And then I want to come to the turkey bacon. And if you use regular bacon at home, of course, you can do that as well. And what I did here, because the full strips were a little bit too long, I just cut them in half so that I could then layer it here. And these are already fully cooked, unlike a regular raw pork bacon. This one is already cooked all the way. I'm going to put one more piece right.
Okay, question about the sesame oil. What's the difference between toasted and regular?
Sort of like, well, it's darker in color and it's a lot more aromatic. I think you can sort of see it against my jacket, perhaps, how it's brown. And the aroma and the flavor is so much nicer. Sort of like a any kind of toasted nuts that you might have, right? Once you toast them up, it releases the oils and the flavors, and it has a lot better aroma and a lot better flavor. But you could use regular oil as well. Okay. So I just cover the top with that. I like the flavor of this. I probably could have got by with a little bit less, but I think that worked out good. and the temp's about right. It's at the 340. And this is going to take, you know, this morning I spent about 4 minutes or so on this particular side. The tricky flip is this first one because the bacon's just sort of sitting there. And if you're not quick and accurate, then it can tend to fall off. So we'll see where that goes. And you can see how this smaller spatula wouldn't really work at all. I'd be fighting that if I tried it. This one I think I can make work. We'll give it a shot. And if you're doing it in a saute pan, a non-stick pan at home, then it's easy enough to just kind of maybe give it a flip like that with your wrist. Or again, you could come with a spatula. You could also take another pan, put it over the top, and then just turn it like that, and that would work.
We have a couple questions about eggs.
Yep.
One was, this person didn't notice, but did you scramble the eggs before adding them into the cabbage batter mixture? And the other question was, did you use all 4 eggs for half a portion?
To answer the second question first, I only used 2 in this particular batch because these are extra large. And I found that that worked out pretty well for me earlier today. So it depends on the egg size that you're doing. And I didn't scramble them. If you watch and look at someone make this in traditional form, what I gathered from it was that the stretching and kind of mixing of the egg is it's very loose in nature. So that's probably part of the reason also why it's not mixed into the batter and fully incorporated. I actually today, I brought a fork out this morning. I was going to just mix the egg a little bit and then pour it in. But as I was doing my research, I did notice most professionals that do this daily would fold it in, just watching the yolk break up into that cabbage mixture once it's already has the batter on it. So that's the reason I went that route. And then I do just put a lid on it. This morning, I didn't have my lids out here. So when I made them, it's hard to get the heat to go to the center of the okonomiyaki, right? And to cook that cabbage and that batter. What we want to do is make sure it penetrates the batter and cooks the starch that is in that batter itself. So putting a little cover on that, you'll be able to see there's a little bit of moisture forming. That's going to drop down, create a little bit of steam and help cook it a little quicker. So that'll help us out a little bit in that regard.
Ingrid Peterson is saying this is kind of like making latkes. Latkes, I don't know the pronunciation, I'm sorry. Hanukkah grated potato pancakes.
Oh yeah.
So it's very similar.
Yep, absolutely. I love that.
Christy wants to know what's a good plant-based substitute for the turkey bacon?
A snack-based?
No, plant-based.
Oh, plant-based. Oh, I'm sure
Morningstar makes one.
Yeah, like a tofu bacon or something.
Yeah.
Well,
not tofu, plant things.
Yeah, there must be plant-based bacon. This is probably one of the hardest ones to do a substitution for, because for those of you who love bacon, and I love bacon, there almost is no substitute for it. This comes close and can give you that satisfaction. It doesn't really get the crispness to it, but the flavor is really, really good. And I'm assuming that on the veggie side, plant-based side, there's probably some products that are similar as well. Now I need everybody to look away while I flip this. Look over there, what's that?
While Dan's flipping, I just want to announce that Jeannie Raybold, you're the door prize winner. So please respond to David in the chat if you would like to claim that prize.
And you look back and it was flipped already. So see, we got a little bit of golden brown on here. I'm always checking the temperature to make sure that this functions throughout the whole show. But we did want a little bit of brown. We're going to flip it again. What we're doing here is kind of cooking the bacon more or less, and then heating and cooking the cabbage that's on that top surface. When the bacon is cooked, and obviously our turkey's already cooked, so it's really just heating it up. We'll flip it again and then heat up the bottom and then do the garnishes on top. So I can flip this one. We'll try it again. My first flip today did not go as planned, but this one seems to be working okay. I wasn't focused, so we'll see. There we go.
You got many, many congratulations on flipping
Oh, all right.
successfully. I didn't
Yeah,
want to
we
say
all
it too soon in case it made bachi.
We all know how that goes, right? When you're flipping something and it ends up on the floor, or when someone's watching you and you're trying to demonstrate as the one time, it doesn't work. So I'm going to give this a couple minutes, at which point I'm going to come real quick to the cabbage. I was looking when I was buying cabbage at the store at like Napa cabbage, and I'm thinking, oh, arugula, or a lot of different things that you could do or add to this. Now, traditionally, keep in mind, like all of the things that we've been doing, especially for this month where we're focusing on Japanese favorites, there's a lot of cultural history that's tied to it. There's a lot of tradition. There's a lot of love and passion that goes into the way things are made. So to get wild and creative with ingredients is something that I would normally do, but we always want to, of course, honor what the traditional method is. So different cabbages and stuff and other ingredients inside might work, but it might not necessarily be what we would call the traditional style. So I just need to cut the core out. It's just been split in half. And then I just need to cut that center core out. Take that. We usually discard that. And then hopefully you guys can see. Slide this back. And then I'm just using a regular French knife. I'm just going to shave it as thin as possible. And I'm coming from the side. So usually if I'm cutting something rounded, I'll tend to kind of come at a bit of an angle and follow it up. So I'm just shaving it really thin.
As you're cutting, there's a question. Why, Don wants to know, why did you cover the pancakes?
Yeah, I wanted that heat to get trapped inside the steam to cook the pancake all the way through. Because it's a little thicker than the one I made this morning, I want to make sure that everything that's on the inside is going to get cooked as well. Great question. So you can see I just cut it as thin as possible. My knife needs to be sharpened. Actually, I didn't do a great job. But when it's nice and thin like that, it cooks a little bit quicker. So I'm going to just mix this in with the batch that I have. And then I think I can come back and flip this. I can smell the smokiness of that bacon. Now this is a little bit trickier to do this so because the bacon might fall off, but we'll see how it goes. All right. So we've got a little bit of crispness. And what I've noticed with this turkey bacon, it will crisp up a little bit. Not quite as crispy as you'd get with the traditional pork bacon, but it's definitely a lot healthier for you. In fact, I was noticing on the package earlier, it's gluten-free, but it also 58% less fat, 57% less sodium. So if you're watching your fat and your cholesterol and you're watching your sodium intake, this is a good solution that gives you something that's pretty close to what bacon lovers have come to know. So now I just have to let this cook a little bit more. I'm going to leave the heat off, and then I'm going to pull up the sauces that I have. So we've got the traditional okonomiyaki sauce, the sweet mayo, and for other garnishes, I've got some more green onion, some of the sesame seeds, and then the nori. This over here.
Okay.
Yep,
We have another question about the namaino. I'm sorry. The Chinese yam.
Chinese yam,
Okay.
yep.
What is the yam that you, what is that? The nagaimo. Yeah. What does it do in the recipe when you mix it in? What's
it adds flavor. It adds a little bit of binding from that gelatinous nature of it. And it's just one of the traditional items that's added to the classic dish. So yeah, a little bit of flavor, a little bit of texture, and in line with tradition. So good question. All right.
Okay. Somebody wants to be using pork bacon. So is there timing changes, recipe changes, any procedural changes if they're using regular pork bacon?
I don't think so. You just have to check it. So if you were flipping this with the bacon side down and cooking it like we did here, just give it a little lift and take a look at your bacon. And once the bacon has become crispy and cooked, then you'll know that it's done. I would stay away from like the thick cut bacon. The thinner, the better. And you may even be able to get like the larger raw sliced home style bacon would work perfectly for this, sort of like the pork style slices that you might find in a saimin or in a ramen, classic ramen dish. But yeah, you just have to check it. The timing should be about the same. I think we're on the other side for about 4 minutes, 5 minutes maybe, and that sounds about right for what we're doing. And then I'm gonna sauce it. Well, I like to sauce it here because the heat makes the bonito go crazy. So I'll do one on the plate and then one on the burner. So it's up to you if you're a fan of the sweetened mayo, and you can make this with just a low-fat mayo and a Marin. It works well, or you can just purchase some of the ones that are already done. And I'm just gonna sauce it with this.
Wally wants to know if he uses chicken, shrimp, or other vegetables, do they need to be finely cut beforehand?
It depends on how long you're going to cook it. If it's on top or if it's inside. If it's inside, I would cut it a little finer. If it's on top, you could have it a little bit larger. I actually pulled out some shrimp. I'm going to probably cook one after the show so that we have a shrimp one as well. But as long as whatever you're adding gets cooked and you think about that heat transfer, you should be fine. So a little smaller if it's inside, a little bit bigger if it's on the outside. A little bit of green onions. Some of the seaweed, the nori. I miss traveling and experiencing like street food. We were just watching a series, I think it was on Netflix, about street food. And one of the street vendors that they focus on, or the dishes they focus on, is in Osaka, and they talk about this particular dish as well. So it's kind of nice. And then the last thing I'll just throw on.
Okay, we have some bacon questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
One is, do you have to fry regular bacon before you put it on? And the other one is, can we use the pre-cooked pork bacon?
Yes, to both, or yes to the second question. For the first question, if you wanted to pre-cook it, you absolutely could. If you think of this as like a cabbage pancake, you can add anything you want at any particular time, totally up to you. So if it was pre-cooked bacon or some leftover bacon from breakfast that you wanted to use in this dish later on in the evening, no problem at all. So yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll do this one on the plate.
Okay, Lynn up in Alaska has some questions about the sauces.
Yes.
They don't live near any stores that carry these things. So is there any links for them to be able to buy them?
Yes, or you can get the ingredients to make it probably at your local supermarket. Or if you shoot me an email, danswift@hawaii.edu, I can send you a recipe, a simple recipe for it. Or you could just probably order it online. So there's probably a lot of different ones. If you just look up konomiyaki and the sauce, you'll find recipes for it and options to purchase it. The green onion, seaweed. And you could, like I said, get creative by adding whatever toppings and things that you'd like. A little bit of this. And you can see the bonito on this particular one moving around, which is really nice. And this is best enjoyed fresh. Ideally, you would be making it and then serving it immediately. Obviously, these are about medium-sized ones. You can make ones that are a little bit larger, but even this medium-sized one could be cut into multiple pieces and then put on a plate and shared amongst 3 or 4 people. It doesn't have to be like one individual person eating this particular size. Let me try that.
Okay, there's a question. What's the ingredients in the okonomiyaki sauce? So if they wanted to make their own.
Yeah, it's soy, a little bit of sugar, some mayo, and what's the other? Some mirin. There's different versions of the sauce, but yeah, if you shoot me an email, I can give you the exact measurements, no problem. And I'm going to cut this one in half. And I'll turn it a little bit, try to get quarters.
Pat wants to know if you can use those little bacon bits that come in for the salad.
Yeah, that's a great question. You can use, as we always say, anything you want. I'm not sure those are bacon. Some of those are artificial or different mixtures of things. But yeah, if you like the flavor of a particular item, you can absolutely use whatever you want. Yeah, we encourage that. You don't really want to buy a lot of different things that you might not normally stock in your pantry or in your refrigerator. If you can cross-utilize the items that you have already, then it works perfect. So I got that one cut. And then that way you end up with multiple pieces. So this could be shared, if you can see, a little bit easier when it's cut, or you can even cut it for someone when you're serving it. And you can see that one of the good things about these nonstick griddles or pans is you can just wipe them down with a wet cloth. And then that's a ceramic plate, so I'm going to go ahead and just set it there. And then we'll have these two that'll stay nice and warm for us. So that's basically all there is to it. Super simple, can be healthy. If you do those substitutions that we're talking about this evening, I could come back and add a little bit of the toast or the fried wheat tempura bits, because you're not using a whole lot. This is going to give us a little crunch and texture as well. And not a lot of fat being added, because we're just like a teaspoon per serving, which is low on the fat side. Great. Yeah. Are there any other questions, Cindy?
Who is this? Serena says her bacon keeps on falling off. How come?
Oh, is she making it right now?
I don't know. She didn't say, but she says when she flips it, it falls off. How come yours stay?
Super glue. No, I'm just kidding. It depends on take a look at your batter or your cabbage. If you can see this one, it's a little bit wet. So maybe you need a little bit more coating of the batter on your cabbage, because what's happening when it's on the bacon side down, it's cooking that bacon. It's also cooking that batter, and the egg that's in the batter is going to coagulate, and it should allow that bacon to stick to the cabbage batter mixture. So maybe a little bit more of the batter in your cabbage. You may also try to just increase the quantity of your egg. I don't know, it depends on the size of egg that you're using, but you should get that to bond when the egg gets cooked and the batter gets cooked. So that's sort of the concept there, is it's sticking to it. And then of course, make sure that you're covering the okonomiyaki on the first side down. That allows some steam to kind of cook the top part as well and start that coagulation process. So give that a try. Hopefully that will work. That's what I would recommend.
Okay, couple questions about the Chinese yam. What else can you use it for, since they have such a big piece?
Yeah, that's the thing I was thinking about too, because I had to buy the whole, they have them in 1 pound pieces. I don't use this a whole lot. I'm not a huge fan of that texture, but it can be cut. There's some classic dishes where it can be cut and steamed. It can be boiled. It can be grated up and added into stews and different things. So if you do a quick search online, you can find some traditional dishes. It's sort of like jicama, I guess, and some other items that we would use traditionally. That's more Southwestern style United States, but items like that would work. And the flavor is pretty mild. So you may even come up with some creative ways to add it to other items. So I haven't fried it before. I'm not really sure if it would work well fried. But things like okra and the real viscous style dishes, natto, things that I don't tend to eat a whole lot. So do a little bit of research online. You'll find some other uses for it as well. I think we used it in one other dish this series. I can't recall which one.
Ramon wants you to do a future show with a Hiroshima style version, please.
Yeah, my wife wants me to do that one too. That's her favorite. We can. I mean, this series was a lot of fun for me. I got some emails from folks that did use the air fryer to do the karaage last week, and it turned out great, I thought, on our end, and they were happy with the outcome for it. So, I learned a lot over the last 4 weeks, and we look forward to the next series where we'll focus on the ingredients that are used a lot locally here. I know that we're going to be doing some, we're working with kalo, we're working with ulu, we're doing some green papaya, some olena, some uala, our namesake. We're using uala for a couple dishes and stuff. So lots of different things that we could work on. If Jackie wants me to do the other style, the Hiroshima style, I'm happy to do it. I love the dish, and so does my wife. So we appreciate you guys sending ideas to us, and thanks for sending me pictures of the things that you make. I really appreciate it. I wanted to, if I could really quick, just mention that here at Windward, we have a Meals with a Mission program, which is where we raise funds to feed food insecure students. One of our goals at Windward is to make sure that there's no students going hungry. We served 6,000 meals at no cost to students last year. And we have a little fundraising campaign set up through UH Manoa's foundation office. And I think there's a link in chat that's going to be added. And if you have an interest in making a donation of even a few dollars would be great. We have a matching grant right now where we are, for every dollar that's donated, Jackie Malley will be matching that. And we're working towards our goal to make sure that we can feed all of the students throughout this entire academic year and raise enough money over the next few months. So we'd appreciate it if you take a look at that if you can. And I thank you guys for tuning in and for all of your support over the last year plus.
Mahalo nui loa, Chef Dan, and mahalo to those watching from home. Chef Dan will be on vacation the first 2 weeks of September. So he'll be returning on Thursday, September 16th with the uala sweet potato.